Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So it's time. We got done all the class ranking videos, and now we must get on with top 20 champions in MCOC. And this list will undoubtedly, for some reason, cause people to think I have insulted their ancestors, smitten their wife, or done something else unbecoming, that I am the worst human being in the planet for having a list or an opinion. But besides all that, love you too, guys, by the way. Obviously, a list has to be made. This is my list. You're more than welcome to make your list. And the standard disclaimer here is that this is the way I see the game. This is what I perceive currently happening in the game. So my opinion plus current game relevance and trends. I do prioritize more the competitive game modes, I think, for a good reason, because again, if some champion is good for questing, I don't think that is as valuable as if a champion is great for, let's say, Battlegrounds or Alliance War, and probably good for questing. As in non-competitive game modes, I look at the game as if you're guaranteed a win eventually. It's just that simple. If you're doing a quest path, you're guaranteed the ability to clear that path eventually. Be that ranking up your champions higher, be that bringing in more appropriate counters, be that, reviving through and using units, be that boosting, be that improving your level skills. But eventually, anything that exists in a game, as in like player versus environment type thing, you're guaranteed the ability to clear. Whether you will or will not depends on you and your grit and whether it's worth it and all that stuff, but there's nothing stopping you from, going at it until it's done. That is not true for competitive game modes, because once you lose, that's it. You have lost. If your team loses the war because of you, that's it. There's nothing you can do to undo that and get better rewards for your team. If you lose a Battlegrounds match, that's it. There's no redo or undo button there. And if you go on a tilt, that's it. All those points are lost. Only thing you can do is play better and keep at it, right? So the champions that are getting used by the most skilled players in the most competitive situations when losing actually matters, and how consequences, in my eyes, have the most value in the game. Because again, those are the champions that we chase, those are the champions that get the 6 stones, those are the champions that we rank up the highest, those are the champions that we learn to play the best, and it is for a good reason. So, that said, let's get in the rankings, shall we? And one champion I wanted to shout out, it was Provator. He is spot 21, basically. I would have ranked him spot 20. I kind of wanted to get him in top 20, but at the same time, I really couldn't, and especially because I'm not that confident on, how well he's going to age and how well he's going to do. So, in my opinion, he's just a little bit too new to get into the top 20 list, or I lack full experience or full scope of, confidence in him. But at the same time, I do think he's intriguing enough to deserve a mention, and I can easily see him making the top 20 in 6 months' time when I'm going to be redoing these lists. But, I could also see him drifting a bit lower. Right, that said, spot 20 is given to Fam, and the board describing Fam is basically solid. He definitely did make a better 7-star comeback than I thought he would. And effectively, realistically speaking, Fam isn't the best counter for anything, nor he is like the toughest defender or anything like that. But he's kind of good on both ends. He has his matchups that he does well enough against. He does have kind of like his unique power control mechanic as well. That's, well, relatively unique. Up until a couple weeks ago, we didn't have any disintegrate immune champions in the game, so he was also capable of inflicting his damage on just about anything, and he absolutely can come into clutch. Also, his defensive prowess aided with absolutely gnarly AI and incredibly long light attack reach, prone to causing mistakes. I do think he has a lot of defensive value, especially with the current system of nodes and metas, where we do have a lot of extra complications in the fight. So he's, more often than not, the type of champion that I personally don't like to fight up against, and I do think, there is quite high level of mistakes being made against him by a lot of players. And again, offensively, you can turn around him, slap him on attack, and still find reasonably good matchups for him. So I do think, whilst he isn't like at the tippy top of the game, or at the peak of his powers, I think he has aged well enough kind of to warrant a spot here. He's kind of like a higher version of Shield in a sense, where, again, from the very beginning, I have described Shield as like a solid, good champion. And I don't think she's insane on either end, but, she's never going to be considered a bad champion, in my opinion. It's kind of similar to Fam. I don't think he's like the best, the most amazing, or the most, at anything. But at the same time, he's kind of good enough on both ends, and that does carry quite a lot of value. And it is undeniable that he's present, he's relevant, and he's active in the current game. So there you go. That's Fam. Next up, we have Crossbones. And Crossbones is even trickier case because ranking Crossbones is insanely difficult. Because if you take a look at the tippy top of what you can do with Crossbones, he should be like top 10 champion in game for sure. But at the same time, I think there's like 40 people maybe in the game who are actually capable of doing it. And it's not like, oh, it's just a high skill level champion. It's a bit beyond that. There's Tigra, there's Quake, and there has been like all sorts of these champions that demanded a relatively high skill level to pull it out from, and players did it. Crossbones is a bit different. Crossbones has like very good bottom ceiling, where with a relatively low level of skill you can still achieve quite a lot. But then if you are, at the very peak of the player's ability, and I'm talking like C4 level player, and then he can do absolutely ridiculous things which are kind of hard to quantify, and sometimes I don't even know how people did it. Like I've seen him do like 30-some second Jean Grey fights. Like how? Like okay, whatever, but I have seen people do that. Kind of get the Onslaught fight, that's fine, and obviously he's a very good gentle counter, which is actually, by the way, insanely ridiculous how good he is against just about all the mutant champions, because he's been doing it for a while. He's been nuking down Havocs, and he's been nuking down Bishops, and now he's nuking down the new mutants too, which is, again, kind of ridiculous, but that's fine. All that said, apologize for that, but there you go. Crossbones effectively is kind of a unique case. I can absolutely understand somebody coming into comment section and having a go at me that he should be ranked higher. I kind of get it, but at the same time, even if you use him to kind of like the lower skill requirement, he still achieves great results. He's still a mainstream skill champion that counters like science and nukes them crazy, like Photons and Spider-Womans and Spider-Hams and all that, things and whatnot. And then, pending your own personal compatibility with Crossbones playstyle, you can achieve much better and higher results as well. And that is quite unique, and that definitely has value. Now, I do think I have a slight mistake here, which I need to rectify, but next up, I'm giving it to Tigra. Now, Tigra initially was meant to be slightly bit higher, I'm not gonna lie, but kind of like in a Mystic ranking video, I do think that with Tigra, she's losing a bit of a step. She's still absolutely amazing, don't get me wrong, and she can be absolutely dangerous, and there is a ton of value. But again, with Mystic class attackers kind of like getting a bit more OP, and her not answering a couple of biggest cosmic threats, it does cause a bit of worry. At the same time, she is still one of those champions that absolutely rewards skillful play, can do also some ridiculous matchups, highly affected by the player level skill. Unlike Crossbones, I do think that there is significantly higher amount of players that can play Tigra reasonably well, or well enough for her to do some like crazy things. So that's kind of like the thing with Crossbones. I do think there's legitimately like 40 people that can bring out the best of Crossbones in the world. With Tigra, I think she's a bit more well established. At the same time, obviously she runs through a ton of champions. She's an absolute nuke, and yeah, that is where I see Tigra. One of my all-time favorite champions as well, by the way, and I am very happy that I invested in her and that I keep using her, and yeah, I think she's awesome. There you go, that's Tigra. Next up, we have Jack-o'-lantern, and Jack is, I know a lot of people are going to give me grief for this placement, because again, in theory, and when it comes to like his prestige historically and stuff like that, Jack might be a bit of an odd one out here, because again, on paper, he's like not as capable, but at the same time, in the game, he currently is one of the more sought after champions, the one that's consistently being ranked, consistently getting used. The downside of this is, I can see that going away from Jack with a handful of champion releases. The upside of it is because obviously right now Jack is absolutely on fire. He's like one of the best answers to potentially the most annoying defender right now in the game. He counters again just about all the relevant mutant champions, and similar to Warlock at his time, I call him a champion that just happens to. He happens to not crit, which is kind of like crucial in some of these relevant matchups. He happens to have the reverse control immunity, which is still quite rare and absolutely comes into clutch. Then he happens to be able to parry non-contact attacks and, heal back his energy damage. And that is kind of what's needed from him. He's kind of like a bare bones, like, make me a super efficient tech champion that counters, the class right now. He kind of reminds me of much more solid and enjoyable and not as squishy version of Negasonic, but in a better sense. Because Negasonic, I think, was completely disjointed and a bit of a failure of a champion. Negasonic felt like amalgamation of abilities just to counter all the existing skill class right now. I do find Jack much more better executed concept of a similar thing, where Jack is, again, quite simple to play. Just, get those level 2s, and ideally drop a heavy before you're level 2, and that's just about it. So he's super easy to use and does all the right things. Again, as I said, downside of it is I can easily see him in half a year not being top 30, or I can see him staying there. So that kind of depends on Kabam, because he doesn't have the most ridiculous damage level without external attack modifiers. Trust me, next meta he's gonna go berserk though. But yeah, so I think he's kind of like an excellent, great role player that just keeps winning right now. And he's amidst of all the Hall of Famers. I guess that's how we could describe that. Speaking of Hall of Famers, still Nick. Nick is still an absolute chud in the game. Obviously, there are champions that nuke him. Obviously, there are tougher defenders. Obviously, this, that, and that, and that. But, hey, the old man's still kicking. I don't think anybody can deny that rank 4 Nick, what in everybody's deck. Rank 4 Nick, getting drafted in just about every meta. I don't think anybody can deny that just about any stream you guys watch where somebody plays Battlegrounds, at least Nick is going to be present there somewhere. On defense or attack, in draft, in roster, somewhere. And that is just who he is. Not as dominant as he once was. At the same time, his tricks still work. The life model decoy, and you destroying that life model decoy at the right time just before you finish off your opponent in order to be able to finish up the fight with like 100% health, that's still clutch as hell. Obviously, there's still plethora of abilities, not all of whom have aged the best, but still, the fact that he can shrug off debuffs and knockdowns, that's helpful. He can bypass miss or evade relatively easily, that's also great. Defensively, him becoming unblockable, that still can catch people off guard quite easily. Again, there's the second life, and he quite uniquely shrugs off all the debuffs and passives of him when he enters that, so that also has his uses. Another cool thing that many people didn't know, but when he gets auto-blocked, he actually goes stun immune, and he inflicts bleed on opponents, so that's kind of relevant against some of the newer science champions nowadays as well. When hitting into auto block, Nick is stun immune, has 100% chance to inflict bleed. So there you go. So that kind of progresses his fight, and that definitely has value in game too. So yeah, he just still works. He is still absolutely good enough. He's still in there. He has, again, as I said, his uses and tricks and attack, where you can, again, do like random Atumas and Electro and then just destroy the life model decoy. Or, take damage against Bullseye and then finish that fight well enough, so on. So he can do some cool things still on attack, but primarily, obviously, we stick him on defense for that second health bar. It's kind of funny that this mechanic worked so well that we haven't had a champion with the second health bar since Nick. Let that sink in. Alright, moving up, we have Shathra. And Shathra is objectively one of the most versatile offensive champions in the game. She can't really nuke anything. She doesn't have like the craziest, most explosive damage. But at the same time, just about nothing or very few champions that she can't do well against. Out of my matchup spreadsheet that I have actually filled up quite nicely since, because I did do a stream where we added quite a bit of extra champions, I think Kushala still holds the least amount of... Not Kushala, sorry. Shathra still holds the least amount of fights that she can't do, according to these classifications. So, if I'm not mistaken, just the 4 no's there. Wolf has quite a few well, very few of those as well. But yeah, I think all the champions that we have went over, that actually does the most fights, followed by Thanos, I believe. So that has a ton of value. And many of the matchups that she does well are very important matchups. Like, she does, obviously, Dark Phoenix. Not the best. Not like Nico or New Spidey, but she does well. Then, Thanos and Serpent. She does both of them well. Not the best, but well. And then there are a whole ton of matchups that you wouldn't necessarily think that she can do, but she does them kind of okay. Like, she's okay against Captain Britain. She's okay against Yelena, for instance. She's quite good against Onslaught, and so on and so forth. So there are very few fights she cannot do. The only kind of like weakness is that her damage is energy damage, not like direct damage. So, champions like Solvark and a handful of others will cause her quite a bit of problems. Overall, a bit of skill required, a bit of unique playstyle, not the highest speed, but I think the sheer kind of like ability to do fights is what keeps her relevant. So there you go. I think Shathra deserves spot number 15. Spot number 14, I'm giving to Karolina, and Karolina is, again, as I described, like basically a new age Hyperion. I don't want to, again, I think I'm kind of dragging this out a bit too long, but basically, her glancing is kind of overpowered, reduces damage a ton, and the way she gains power, the fact that she can do entire like fights quickly with barely touching the opponent, has a ton of value. She's a bit unique. Obviously, there are some weaknesses. The fact that you have to be in control of the positioning of the sun, all that other stuff, completely agree and true. But just spam your level 2s. Like, once you have kind of gotten a hang of it, super easy to fight. Just get level 2, block as much as possible, stay sun as much as possible, and just spam your level 2s. That's it. The fight's basically over. And that glancing is kind of OP. Obviously, there's like a little bit more to it, because 100% resistance to incinerate effects. Additionally, Karolina's provides immunity to special lock, power lock, cold snap, and frostbite effects. That's not bad. And parrying projectiles, that's still useful. So I think she's currently, again, an amazing tech attacker that's extremely versatile. And again, also actually has quite a ridiculous list of matchups, not quite as high as Shathra, but she does have speed on her side in her good matchups. So I think that's worth pointing out. And there you go, Karolina's number 14. Number 13 is Mr. Sinister. It's just another one of the most successful buffs, I think, in MCOC. An absolute menace on defense and can be menace on attack. Unfortunately, he's kind of getting ravaged by inequity. If inequity wouldn't be a thing, I swear to God, this guy would be like top 5 for sure. Inequity, unfortunately, kind of slows him down in the competitive game modes because everybody runs it. In questing and stuff like that, you don't have to worry about it, and that's what also kind of makes him ridiculous, because his damage output is absolutely bonkers, if not for inequity. But on top of that, he also ramps up, and when Necropolis Mutants runs came out, dude, Sinister was so crazy, because if you manage to get a couple of these Cosmic charges and a couple of these Mystic charges, you were finishing out fights faster than many of the Nuke champions, and that was broken busted. So he's a crazy good champion as is, basically with no ramp up, but you can also ramp him up, and then he goes like Super Saiyan mode, man. And yeah, there's a ton of kind of like little hidden utility tips and tricks with him. For instance, he's randomly immune to taunt and reverse controls. That's awesome. He can block unblockable special attacks except against text. That's great. And obviously him like dealing with opponents that purify and taking that skill away gradually is also kind of clutch and underrated. And then obviously just the general way how he deals damage and how you can extend the stun durations and all that stuff. Being immune to regen reversal, again, makes him like one of the most dangerous defenders, and again, under specific metas as well. And yeah, he's just crazy good. I think inequity is just like one big weakness that the guy really has. On the plus side, he responds extremely well with any kind of attack modifiers. So next week, Mr. Sinister is going to go crazy in Battlegrounds, as well as every time you see like power shield metas and so on and so forth. So overall, the only kind of bad thing in Mr. Sinister, again, if they would remove inequity from like affecting him, or there was no inequity, he would be ranked higher. Other reason he could be ranked higher is because he's completely different champion if you do get a couple of Cosmic Furies, opposed to if you do not. So really, it's like also a bit RNG, because you never know which Mr. Sinister you're gonna get. Because if you get like a couple of Cosmics, one Mystic, he's gonna finish the fight like half as fast as he will if you don't. So that does really kind of change his attack capabilities, which obviously not being certain or unsure how well and how fast champions can do is a bit of a downside. But that just means that there can also be a super high upside. Moving up, Tigra Spider-Man. I think the best tech champion in the game right now, but this also kind of shows what I think of tech class. He's spot number 12, and that's high as the techs go. He is the best or top 3 Balgon stacker in game. He just is. At this point, you know, he just, again, it's kind of stupid in a sense, because Kabam keeps bringing out these all new defenders, and then it just turns out that Starkey still somehow nukes them. Either he just, you know, ramps up and then goes for a stun lock, or, you know, you can do it with heavy attacks, or there's something else in his kit that helps you tremendously. Even in the fights you're not meant to do well against with a Starkhand Spider-Man. And that is the thing that makes him good. For instance, Gentle's Crit. You can't crit him against twice in quick succession, or your crits get completely shut down. Well, guess what? You can just parry heavy Gentle and still be like super efficient Gentle counter. Similar to Jean Grey. You're not meant to crit against Jean Grey, and you get these exhaustions, and it's bad, but, and all that stuff. But, you know, parry heavy with Starkhand Spider-Man, and, you know, you still do you don't nuke the fight, but you do it well. Then the random fact that, you know, Zola comes out. Hey, who's one of the best Zola counters in the game? Hey, it turns out to be Starkhand Spider-Man. Photon comes out. Who's one of the best Photon counters in the game? Hey, it turns out to be Starkhand Spider-Man. Bullseye comes out. Hey, guess who can counter Bullseye exceptionally well, with maybe allowing him like a single special attack, if that? Starkhand Spider-Man. Hey, you know, Onslaught. Great, Starkhand Spider-Man, right? And you know, even like the old nukes, like there's Rintra. Hey, guess who can nuke Rintra? It's like, there you go. And overall, there are just like so few champions that he doesn't run over. Like Spider-Woman. Again, Spider-Woman is like extremely capable defender. It's like, hey, what's one of the better counters against Spider-Woman? Starkhand Spider-Man. And you guys kind of sense the theme. He's legitimately one of the best Balgon stackers I think we have had. And I still think he absolutely deserves this spot. Obviously, there are issues that don't like him. On a personal level, I actually don't like using him. That whole, you know, poise gaining process, stuff like that, I find it annoying. And, like, again, there isn't a single quest fight where I go in, you know, thinking, oh boy, I get to use Starkhand Spider-Man. No, so it's not like he's a favorite of mine. He's just a champion whose quality it's very difficult to argue against. Right, next up, 11, Kushala. And Kushala's quite simple. Kushala is just popping off. Kushala is doing all the right things at the right time, and her additional bits of utility, I think, are kind of underestimated, because I don't think many people even realize that with her blessings, you're actually, you know, making opponent more aggressive, thus making it easier for you to intercept, for instance. You're also increasing Kushala's ability power rate by 15% and reducing opponents at the same time, so you're reducing the amount of power they gain. For instance, this kind of clutch against Serpent, so he doesn't shoot as many special attacks. He has that ability. And again, increasing the potency of damaging effects by 10% with these blessings. And obviously, everybody knows the regen one on the block and being able to block unblockables. So that's like a very solid set of utilities in itself. But then on top of it all, access to that Soul Barb. So she's actually a Mystic that's good against champions who can't be nullified, for instance. That's great, because you can still just, you know, Soul Barb them and do a ton of damage like that. Incinerate and extension of that, and the fact that at high sig you cause a lot of passives and increased chance of that. She just works, man, right now. And again, she does have quite a nice list of matchups. That's very good. On top of it all, she is actually one of the best and one of de facto kind of like default options and counters against many fights in the game currently. And again, as I said, she also is exceptionally good against some random fights like, you know, Dusts and Jean Greys and so on and so forth. And then people learn how use Kushala against Zola very well, and you'd heard like regen and block, you know, you end up quite healthy in these fights. And yeah, she is currently doing very, very well in the game for sure, and very happy for the champion. Moving on. Oh, another cool thing is that unlike most Mystics, she benefits from the Mystic Dispersion when the buffs are gained. That also means that she benefits from opponents gaining buffs with no expiry. without needing to nullify them, which again kind of unlocks a ton of cool and interesting interactions in the game. Right, moving on, spot number 10, I'm going to Okoye. I kind of wish I could rank her higher. The one reason I can't really rank her higher is because she doesn't have the widest matchup list. The thing is, she kind of hits the right things and does them surprisingly good even, but she doesn't have like the biggest matchup list. At the same time, she's definitely a staple in the game. You see her in like all the decks all the time. People use her. She does some ridiculous matchups, including like Yelenas and Dark Phoenixes, and then sometimes people clutch out like Zolas with her and stuff like that. And that's kind of the difference. Doesn't do as well as some of the champions below on this list, but she's a complete and absolute deterrent to a point where if opponent has drafted Okoye, so many of the draft choices seem absolutely unviable in a sense. As in, like, if opponent has, for instance, Shathra, quite often you still end up drafting Serpent, realizing that, you know, he has to have the perfect fight and he's still going to take like 60 seconds to get that fight done, and then potentially with a good matchup you can outspeed that and all that stuff. With Okoye, that's never a concern. Like, if opponent has Okoye, you don't really ever think of drafting like Photon or Spider-Woman for defense or so on and so forth. So that's the difference, because Okoye is a complete nuke. Also, one of the most satisfying champions to play, I must admit that. She is, in fact, one of my kind of like champions that I do use for like casual questing and stuff like that. Because, you know, it's just extremely satisfying to see all that dot tick away opponent's health. And then on top of it all, obviously that Enderweight is doing a ton of work with the ability accuracy reduction. Sorry, and snare, not Enderweight. And that, you know, is making possible for her to, you know, switch off Serpent's or Dark Phoenix's immortality, which has worked from time to time. And she kind of feels like a champion that's never really out of the fight. And again, I love the fact that you can play her freely, go for level 1s, go for level 2s, you know, drop in that heavy at the right time for like a whole bunch of extra damage. There's a ton of freedom in using her, which I absolutely love. And again, one reason why she's a successful champion is the fact that she has bleed and shock and works equally well basically on either or. Because if she was just a shock champion, I don't think she would even be like in top 20 list, honestly. I think is the fact that she works with either or and has two different dots is what makes her so great. Phenomenal Photon, like again, obviously her defensive presence has decreased without a doubt. There are more champions that are capable of dealing with Photon, and there are more players who are more skilled than ever with countering her. At the same time, it is impossible to deny that she has a massive defensive impact, still is more than viable attacker under plenty of circumstances. And overall, currently in the game, undoubtedly she is the second best science champion, one of the two like really relevant science champions in my opinion, and well deserves to be here. Up until very recently, she was actually in my top 5. I did downgrade her a little bit because I think this is a bit more appropriate for her. And still one of my all-time favorite champions released, I'd say. Unfortunately, she's also a champion that started like a very crappy trend of bullshit defenders and switching off willpowers, and I kind of hate her for that. But I like to use her myself, if that makes sense. So there you go. That's Photon. She's also like the only champion I got from Early Access Bundle as a 7-star, and then I couldn't dupe her for a year. Right, let's move on. Dark Phoenix. Dark Phoenix has lost some ground since she's been released, obviously courtesy to some OP Mystic attackers. At the same time, she's absolutely bullshit unfair champion, and that has actively made the game worse. Again, make no mistake, the game would be better off without Dark Phoenix in it. Just I don't think there's an argument for anything else. Anytime you do fight Dark Phoenix, even if you have somewhat a decent defender and you end up taking, you know, 20% of your health at the end of the fight, it sucks. You hate it. Every time you have to fight Dark Phoenix without a good counter, you just want to throw your phone out. It feels like the most unfair thing in the world, and it's bullshit. Hate it. But we can't, you know, deny that it wins. It is a problem. She's there, and, you know, she exists in the game. The way I actually enjoy Dark Phoenix, again, is kind of offensively, really. Because she's better attacker than more people think. So if it wouldn't be for her defensive mechanics, I'd actually kind of like her in attack, because I use her from time to time and tested and messed around with her. For instance, in the Elder difficulty, when I was fairly low in health, I just, you know, picked Dark Phoenix, dropped some specials and let my opponent kill me. and regen fully instantly. That regen's quite OP with that immortality when you are actually the one using it. And she's actually quite good for long form fights because you can drop like 3 level 3s, and then you have all these permanent no flames, and you have these permanent charges, and then you just do like your level 2, level 1 spam rotation. And she's actually kind of fun once ramped up. And then even in Battleground, she has some viable matchups. So if she just wasn't such a bitch on defense that felt so bullshit to fight against, but she is, so. Anyways, that's where I put her. Speaking of bullshit on defense, it's Captain Britain. Captain Britain is objectively better offensively, and I also think she's better defender right now. I think there are less counters to her, and anything and everything I said about Dark Phoenix, you can give it to Captain Britain, but make it worse. And the worst thing about Captain Britain is, first of all, similar to Dark Phoenix, if she randomly throws a level 1 when you don't want her to, the fight kind of goes tits up, which I hate. Second of all, her recovery times are making stupid fight annoying. Like, honestly, like, because it's a stressful fight against like one of the best defenders, I personally often end up still making some mistakes because, you know, she has like stupid fast recovery from heavy attack and level 2, and that, you know, she goes stun immune on her first medium when she enters her like damage mode, and she's a bitch. That's it. She's kind of a good attacker. She's, again, like, was quite nice for the Coliseum. She's quite nice on attack in general, especially now with the special 3 skip. But man, she a bitch. I hate her. Like, fuck that bitch. Also, like, one of my worst videos ever made was talking about Captain Britain upon release. That was like the one take in like recent year that I completely missed. In general, I'm quite decently good predicting whether champions will or will not be, you know, good or amazing, and, you know, for most part, I'm quite accurate with that. But this was the one time I didn't. I was like, Captain Britain doesn't seem that bad. I was testing my champions against like 6-star. I was still testing underranked champions. Like, you can play around it. It's not that bad and stuff like that. 7-star Captain Britain became popular, and fuck that bitch. Anyways, sorry for the foul language. I'm trying to clean up, but these two ladies can sit on this and suck on that, honestly. Right, let's move on. Jean Grey. And Jean Grey is nothing like the ladies before. Jean Grey is actually respectable. I like Jean Grey. I think she's mild-mannered, very nice, peaceful lady. Because I think she's a good attacker. Not insane. Quite good. You know, does fair list of matchups. And I think she's a good defender. Not insane. Not bullshit. Not unfair. Good. So, she's good, right? And why is she ranked up higher? Well, again, number one, because she's more capable attacker than both of these two. Number two, because she does have an incredibly high level of interactions that make her stupid. And that is a world that I'm much more willing to accept. For instance, you know, we have a ton of these metas that either double with, you know, forcing to intercept and then being in reverse controls. I remember, you know, her being an auto ban because of her defense. Because again, the nodes made the fight so difficult that it was borderline impossible to track along with the reverse controls and everything else. And that made her kind of like extremely difficult to fight without specific counter. And similarly, offensively, she interacts very well with any attack modification. She kind of can slide under the radar for like a ton of different nodes. For instance, where you can have like Polka Dot Power Shield, you know, barely anybody's immune Neuroshock. And with Power Shield, she's going to do insane damage. And she just have like she has her like base level of quality that's very high, and I think it's kind of staple in the game, perfectly adequate. And then out of all the champions in this list, I think she has the most stupidly OP interactions with different nodes, with different abilities. And therefore, she goes spot number 6. I think second best mutant in the game. Moving on, Nico. The best mystic in the game. Nico, I think, is kind of like on the borderline of bullshit. If Nico was released before Serpent, Dark Phoenix, Bullseye, stuff like that, I'd probably say she's bullshit on defense. But overall, she's just like a very capable dual purpose champion. She runs over all of the Cosmic class. Buff immunity is the strongest buff control that we have in the game. And then obviously add on top of that she can do poison or acid wash, or if need be, switch to incinerate. You know, give her passive furies, give her invisibility, give her this, give her that, give her potential immunities to rupture and poison. And you have a crazy good Mystic. And then obviously you do have Nico as a defender, which also can escalate out of control so badly. There are plenty of champions that do counter her. It's not like you need like this one specific ability. So I'm more willing to accept Nico in defense than, you know, Britain and Dark Phoenix and stuff, because with her, basically if you have the, you know, poison immunity and not too many buffs, you're kind of good. You can deal with that fight. You know, the fight's not going to be easy, but you can at least do it, and it's not going to, you know, take away 50% of your health just because you exist. So there you go. I think she is a top 5 champion in the game right now. Which actually, realistically, I think in a month she's going to be a top 4 champion in the game, because Spider-Woman. I think Spider-Woman right now is the 4th best champion in the game. I don't know if that's going to be true in January. And I am really, really angry at Kabam for what they did. Especially that after all the commotion, they still felt compelled to take away that ensnare. And it angers me so much, because we have Okoye. And in between her and Okoye, I constantly prove to myself how important that ensnare is. How important it is that you have 30% chance to fail, you know, any ability that potentially can happen in the game. And it includes, you know, Serpent's immortality, includes Dark Phoenix's immortality. It includes a ton of nodes, for instance, in this current meta. You know, every time you feel a power, you have a chance not to get a power sting, and thus, you know, be more free and easy to play. Every time a root comes along, you have a chance not to get rooted, and thus have a good time in the fight. And every time Dark Phoenix throws her special, there's a chance that, you know, the No Flame's gonna fail, or there's a chance she's not gonna get the Fury, and there's a chance for everything to fail. And that is so valuable, and them taking it away from her, I really, really loathe people who made that decision. I genuinely do. I think it is such a bullshit that they're doing to this champion, and I'm still very upset. And if anything, I think the reaction over them abusing Spider-Woman like that, and then lying about it, and lying again about it, and then still not, you know, coming to a resolution that satisfies most people, I don't think it was harsh enough, honestly. I have a lot of issue with what Kabam did there, and soon the fruits of that will come into play. As it stands right now, Spider-Woman's number 4. We'll see where she is afterwards. I still think she's going to be a great champion, don't get me wrong. I don't think she's going to be number 4. I'll just flat out say that. I don't think she's going to have her sport spot for long. And moving on, we have Serpent. I think Serpent, again, is always going to be relevant, or almost always. I think I have spoken that much about him. I think he's made in like the most stupid manner ever. I think he's basically made by a child who wanted to create a superhero with all the powers. That's what he does. He has like fucking 80 billion abilities, and like, you know, immune to half of the things in the game, and then he's resistant to another 25% of the things in the game, and then he counters evade and miss, and then he randomly gains power, and then he gets immortality, and then he inflicts fear, and then he does this, and then he goes stun immune on special attacks, so you can't ever like stun loop him, and then he heals like stupid, and then he does a ton of block damage, and then he has pierce, and then he has this, and then he has fuck off everybody, just, you know, why bother playing? And they actually made an amazing attacker. Again, similarly to Dark Phoenix, but even to a bigger degree, I enjoy him on attack. I just hate him. I enjoy him in Necropolis, for instance. It's very enjoyable. I love him. He's great for like a ton of story content. He's great for Alliance War attack. He's great for challenge mode fights like Ordeal and, you know, Grandmaster's Gauntlet version things. He's amazing for all of that on attack too. But as defender, again, he's absolutely a type champion that has not been good for the game. He's the type champion that has not made the game better or more enjoyable in any way. He's not the type champion that rewards skilled players going up against him. He rewards RPG counters. Him alongside Dark Phoenix and Captain Britain and, you know, a handful of other defenders are the definition of making this game more kind of like random and like a card game rather than a fighting game. Because to a certain degree, you know, especially in like some sort of meta node combinations with Serpent, it doesn't matter how good you are, you're just gonna lose if you don't have like a counter. Same as Britain, same as Dark Phoenix. I really hate what Kabam has been doing with defenders recently. I really, really do. I hope, first of all, even if they fix it, we're still gonna have to live with their mistakes and these champions for a while. And the damage is already done. There is kind of like a point of hope. For instance, like Imperiosa, right? It's a tough defender, but doable if you're very, very skilled. Don't get hit in a block and you'll be fine. And, Jean Grey is a good example and stuff like that. But I can't wait for the day that these champions will be relevant. Hopefully due to the fact that, you can't ever ascend them. It's kind of like, what they did Quake and stuff. I really do. Because they have not made the game better. I don't think Kabam realize how much damage to their own game and fun of the game they did with these champions. But hey, that's Serpent. That's Serpent number 3. Thanos is kind of similar. In a sense, he's just more reasonable. Thanos also like a BS defender. And he's going to stall you a lot. You can't ever be aggressive against him. But at the very least, you can do the fight and you're not going to die just because you enter in that fight. And he's more than capable than Serpent offensively, especially short-medium fights. And I think currently that kind of holds more value because Kabam has been juicing up the Mystic attackers to completely nuke these guys. And then it becomes riskier to draft Serpent than it is to draft Thanos because Thanos is more capable offensively in short-medium fights. So I think currently he kind of holds a little bit of an upper edge in the game. And the top champion in the game is Onslaught. That's quite straightforward there. Onslaught is good at everything. In fact, great at everything. He's a very amazing attacker. I don't think anybody disputes that. He's a very solid defender. I don't think anybody disputes that. The crazy thing is, every area of the game, every single one, Alliance War attack, Alliance War defense, he's good for. Balgron's attack, Balgron's defense, he's good for. And he's not just good for now and then, he's good for like every single meta. I don't remember a time when I didn't, use or have Onslaught in my deck. I really don't. Top of that, Incursions, amazing. Necropolis, hey, it turned out he's insane for it. Amazing for that. Any challenge mode content, amazing. Even like random arbitrary crap like Prestige, hey, top 2 Prestige in the game. So I think Onslaught currently right now is the best champion in the game because again, he's great for everything in the game all the time. He counters like all of the skill class. He nukes the bullseye, he nukes the Yelena, he nukes anything they throw. And then he's still like a solid, reasonable, good attacker for like a bunch of random matchups too. And he's a very respectable defender generically. And then some nodes can make him an absolute nightmare of defender. And then, again, he's just present everywhere in the game. There's not a single thing this guy is kind of bad at. And also, if I need to point out, in a much more seemingly fair and balanced way than Serpent. FYI, somebody needs to learn some lessons there. Because he is amazing, but he's not like bullshit, I think. And again, he's a champion that I personally, the only thing he's not amazing at is fun aspect to me. I don't enjoy him. Again, there hasn't been a single random quest fight where I enter with the thought, oh boy, I get to use Onslaught. Don't generally add him to my questing teams. And again, if I don't have to, I will not use him because I don't think he's like enjoyable particularly to play. But other than that, the man's a menace. There's a ton of immunities or pseudo immunities, access to a ton of debuffs, so switching off the regen, some ability accuracy reduction, so still ability to fail, chance to fail some abilities, deals with Neuroshock, hardly anybody is immune to that, bypasses miss thanks to Neuroshock, and does most of his damage with degen. Again, there's just about nothing immune to that. Kind of all he needs, really. Turns out to be amazing. Great. Right, that's it. The top 20 champions in the game. Here you go. Here's the full list. Okay, here's the full list. I cheated, top 21. Sue me. But there you go. Finally done. Finally done. Now we still need to take a look at best gem and sig use videos. And then I'm going to start working on a tier list. Wish me luck for that one. I'll catch you guys soon. Bye-bye. Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about